nobody in the world that I would bet on more than a mom. Seriously. Moms get shit done. Period. I feel like it's really easy, especially as a mom who's also super ambitious, to compare yourself to other people. But it's also easy to compare yourself to a prior version of yourself when the circumstances were different, when the season was different, where you're like, she did this, and why can't I show up that way now? Well, maybe your desires changed, your capacity has changed, maybe you're just really damn tired, like whatever it is that's going on right now. I don't want us to compare ourselves to prior version of ourselves and feel like we're failing. To that, I say, like, we have one shot here on this planet. Our days are numbered. We literally do not know the count. So I don't want you to be wishing away your current season, right? For a day, for a week, which turns into months, which turns into years. I want you to say, this is where I'm at now. This is how I'm honoring my ambition. This is where I want to be. And this is how I'm working to get myself there. You can have an exceptional marriage and you can have an exceptional business or career or health or whatever. You can do it all. I believe that you can, but you have to do it all with what makes sense for this season, not a prior season where you're constantly just like, well, I used to be able to show up XYZ way. And like, why can't I do that now? And then all of a sudden you're beating yourself up and you're spiraling downward, and then you're ugly crying on your bathroom floor and your snot mascara is getting into your mouth and your kid is pounding on the door like, Mom! I'm not encouraging you to slow down. I'm encouraging you to ask yourself, what is it that I really want right now? And then owning it. What's up? I am so excited that you're here for a little solo episode today, because we're talking about how you uniquely are going to define ambition in this current season. Because if we can define it, then we can own it. And here's the thing. I feel like it's really easy, especially as a mom who's also super ambitious, to compare yourself to other people, but it's also easy to compare yourself to a prior version of yourself when the circumstances were different, when the season was different, where you're like, she did this, and why can't I show up that way now? Well, maybe your desires changed, your capacity has changed, maybe you're just really damn tired, like whatever it is that's going on right now. I don't want us to compare ourselves to prior version of ourselves and feel like we're failing. I want us to really decide, how do I want to show up to my ambition right now? What does that look like? And how can I own it? So that I'm not wishing that I was in a different season. Because even if right now, the season of life that you're in, it's hard, it's difficult. Maybe you're in a career that you're like, I effing hate this job. Get me the F out. Or maybe you're in a business that's no longer aligned and you're like, I need to get out of this, right? Or maybe you're working a ton right now because you're in that massive growth rocket ship mode with your business or a career or a promotion that's on the brink. And like, you just have to focus on that. Even if you don't feel like it's exactly what you want right now, I still want you to own it so that you don't spend any of your precious days, because our days are numbered here and we don't know the count, that you don't spend any of your precious time wishing away your days in hopes of another season, because sometimes days turn into weeks, turn into months, turn into years. And we've got one shot at this life. So I don't want you wishing away your days. So if I can help you in this episode, get a little pep in your step, a little like twerk in your booty, and have you leaving feeling like, yes, this is where I'm at. This is how I'm honoring my ambition. These are the things that I'm showing up for. And these are the things that I just don't have the capacity to show up for right now, that I'm just going to bless and release and own this season. I just feel like you're going to feel lighter, even if it feels heavy right now, even if it feels like you've got a bazillion tabs open, which I honestly think is just the norm when you're a mom. I only have one. I have a 2-year-old. And I'm like, I have so many tabs. But I remember in the early stages when I was breastfeeding, where I was like, tabs about like how much he was eating and when he was eating and what was going on with my boobs and when was I going to do, like, I mean, it was just like, there's always so many tabs. And I know as your kids get older, then you've also got their activities and you've got their school and you've got 100 million emails from the school of like, you got to, dress them up for Spirit Day and bring this particular snack. And you're like, oh shit, I have so much going on, right? I get that we're always going to have that as ambitious moms. But what I also want to remind you is that the cultural narrative around ambition is wrong. It's short-sighted. And I don't like to give prescriptive advice or say right or wrong, but I will die on this hill that I think the way we talk about ambition in our culture is so short-sighted, because it makes us feel like if we're not crushing it in our business or our career or loving our career and growing and making tons of money and getting external validation for accolades and titles and whatever, that we're not ambitious, that we're opted out of that conversation. When in reality, if you're someone who identifies as ambitious, you're channeling that ambition into some aspect of your life. If you're listening into this podcast or watching this on YouTube, you definitely care about being a highly productive, excited human in this world. You care about being a kick-ass mom, and you also care about honoring whatever outside of motherhood lights you the F up, right? So if right now your ambition is channeled into your newborn and you are just showing up to that newborn and trying to show up for yourself and your health, like your mental, emotional, physical health, like you are ambitious. It doesn't mean if a prior version of you was crushing it in your career and right now you're just like, I don't even have the capacity. I'm just showing up and going through the motions because I feel like this is where my ambition has to go. You are still ambitious, but the slippery slope that I mentioned that I've struggled with, even more than comparing myself to other people, I've struggled with comparing myself to a prior version of myself when the circumstances and season were different. I still struggle with this, which is why I literally created this podcast so we could talk about these topics. Solo episodes when I have my husband Sina on, when I have other guests on, like I want to talk about this because it is something that I think when we're aware of, we can catch ourselves, but I think it's going to be a constant problem for a lot of us. At least I'll just admit it's a problem for me. So let me give you a little context. This current moment, this is, I've only had this new podcast, The Seasons, for a couple weeks now, but you may or may not know that I had a previous show called Empower Her. That show I started in 2018. At the time, I had a huge network marketing business and I was making several $100,000s a year. And at that point, I had been doing that business for so long that I was kind of running on autopilot. When you start a brand new business, you're just like, shit, I have no idea what I'm doing. And it feels like you're pushing a monster truck tire up a hill and you're like ugly crying. You're like, can I do this? And it sucks. And then all of a sudden you get the hang of it and you're like, oh my gosh, I've got this. And then you kind of get your flow and your rhythm and you're moving and you're grooving. It takes you a little bit less time to do the things that used to take you a lot of time. Same rules apply with a new job. I remember my first day at Google, which was way back in 2014. And I sat down and my email was Kacia@Google, which is like Beyonce. Like I just my first name. Amazing, right? Anyway, Kacia@Google. I sat down and I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. What do I do? How do I log in? Where's my stapler? Do I need a stapler? Like when you're starting a new job. And then of course, after you put your reps in, you get your rhythm and all of a sudden you're like, this isn't hard anymore. That applies to everything, right? So at the time that I started my previous podcast, Empower Her, it's the end of 2018. I'm 29. I've got this business that's making a ton of money that I've been in the rhythm of doing. It's really impactful. It's pretty easy for me to kind of run it on autopilot, which it doesn't even require me to put a lot of effort into it in terms of amount of hours. So I could pour so much energy into that new podcast because I had so much time. If you're a parent right now, do you ever think back where you're like, what did I do with all the time that I had before I became a parent? Because my husband and I talk about that all the time where we're like, did we just chill a lot? What were we doing? I don't know. Anyway, here we are. So back then, right, I focused so much on that show. I was doing 2 episodes a week. I was posting on Instagram all the time. I was probably on, as a guest, on 10 to maybe even 15 podcasts a week. And that really helped grow the show, right? Being on other people's podcasts. So if they were like, oh, I vibe with this girl, Kacia, I'm going to go listen into her show. That was a really important way that I grew my show at the very beginning. I was spending so much time doing that and I loved it. And that podcast grew like freaking crazy. It was right place, right time, right demographic, right message. And I was putting so much effort into it because I had all the time in the world. I was just working like crazy and I loved it. Well, fast forward to the start of a brand new show, right? This show is not the same podcast as Empower Her. So it doesn't have the same listeners. I started back over on a brand new RSS feed, so a brand new podcast, a brand new YouTube channel. I'm starting at 0, which means 0 reviews, 0 subscribers, new listeners, starting back over. But right now in this season, I don't have the capacity, or I guess I don't want to create the capacity to show up the way that I did in that season of a brand new podcast in this season of my life. Right now, I'm choosing to only work during nap time, right? That's just what I want to do right now. I love spending time with our 2-year-old. I feel honored and really privileged that a prior version of me hustled her ass off to get to this point that I could have the option. I feel really, really excited about this, but I really just want to work during nap time, which means I don't even have the hours to be on 10 to 15 podcasts a week. I'm doing 1 episode of this podcast a week. That's it. I don't want to spend hours and hours, answering DMs, although I will answer your DM. If you tag me when you love the podcast, that is so awesome, because one of the things that's been so cool about this show that's actually different than Empower Her is it's the exact demographic of who I want to talk to that's listening into this show. So many of us are in that early childhood stage, right? Where you're moms that are ambitious and you're trying to figure out how to show up to your motherhood journey, and you feel like your identity is shifting and you want to be a great, wife, and you want to do all these things and you want to show up for your friendships and your mental health and like all this stuff. But like, we're in the same season. So it's so cool when I get voice messages or tags or DMs, like, it's less people than I got with Empower Her, which has been interesting in itself, just because it's a new show and it's so much more niche than Empower Her was. But it's so meaningful because it's like, I read them and I'm like, yes, I literally made this podcast for you, Sarah, or whoever it is, right? So truth of the matter is, like, that's been really fulfilling. But I'm sharing this in just in a really honest way because it is trying not to compare myself to that version of myself. Because again, I don't want to put in the work that I put in terms of the amount of time that I put into growing that show. So I can't have the same expectations that it's going to grow at the same rate. And I want you to apply that to your own life, right? Maybe right now you're struggling with your workouts, and it's like previously in a different chapter of your life, maybe you had a different childcare situation or you didn't have kids yet, right? It's like, I got up and crushed my morning workouts every single morning, no problem, in a prior version. But like right now, our son, daylight savings time, effed with our son. He started waking up at 6:30 and I was like, hallelujah. Daylight savings time happened. And now it's like, I wake up to mommy, come here, at like 5:15. I'm like, dude, sleep in, like live a little. But you know what I mean? Like the circumstances are different. So if I was comparing myself to a prior version of myself, no matter how many workouts I show up to, I'm not the girl that could get up and just go crush a morning workout because I could wake up 8 hours after I went to bed knowing that I had uninterrupted sleep. It's just not the season of life that I'm in. And I don't even know when I'm going to be in that season of life again. So new season, new scoreboard, new success criteria, and really honoring that. And checking in with yourself, because I really do think that we do this in a lot of different ways. On our walk this morning, my husband and I were talking about this in our marriage, where it's like, there was a prior version of us that could just go on date nights whenever the hell we wanted, right? And now it's like, you got to get a sitter. It's got to be a sitter that you really trust with your kid. And you don't want to stay out too late, because if you stay out too late or you're up too late, your kid doesn't care if you had a couple glasses of wine, because you're going to be waking up in the morning when they wake up no matter what, right? So the circumstances are different. That doesn't mean that we can't still do date nights and have an exceptional marriage. But if we are constantly going through this stage of our marriage, comparing our marriage to a prior version of our marriage when the circumstances were different, we're literally going to feel like we're failing, or we're going to feel like we're not as close, or we don't have as much capacity to give as we did before. We do. And we can have an exceptional marriage, and you can have an exceptional business or career or health or whatever. You can do it all. I believe that you can. But you have to do it all with what makes sense for this season, not a prior season where you're constantly just like, well, I used to be able to show up XYZ way. And like, why can't I do that now? And then all of a sudden you're beating yourself up and you're spiraling downward, and then you're ugly crying on your bathroom floor and your snot mascara is getting into your mouth and your kid is pounding on the door like, Mom! Like, let's not do that. Let's be on our own team, right? Let's celebrate ourselves for what this season is and how you're honoring your ambition currently, and what matters to you right now, and what you're okay with just dropping, right? Because you're juggling all these balls of how you want to show up for your ambition. Because again, it's not just career and business. It's all these different things that you care about. And you're so ambitious, so you want to be great at all of those things. I get that. I feel you. But it's like, sometimes you just got to set a ball down and be like, okay, I am not going to be able to show up for my girlfriends and reply to all these damn text messages every single second right now. And that's okay. I'm going to give myself grace, and I'm going to focus what I need to focus on, right? Because some things just require your attention more than others. And I just want us to really, really honor that for ourselves and really freaking own it. Because then we're not looking at other people saying like, she's got this together and like, why don't I? Right? And like, I'm not looking at a different version of me being like, gosh, she was doing memberships and courses and events and retreats and keynote speaking out the wazoo. And she was on 10 podcasts a week, and her show was growing by 250,000 downloads a month. And it was crazy, and it was blowing up. And it was, because I was in a different season. I don't have the desire to do all of those things now. And maybe my season will change. Again, I'm not saying that as a mom with young kids, you can't have a killer business that's exploding. You get to choose. That's the whole point. You get to choose. And some of you, I know, and I'll acknowledge the elephant in the room. Some of you, I know, you're also in a situation where you're like, Kacia, it's cool that you're saying you get to choose, but I have to work at this job because we need both of our incomes. I get that, right? I get that that's the norm. And I completely understand and I empathize if you're in a situation where you're like, I don't want to be in this situation, but I want to help you own that situation still, right? If you're going to this job and it's sucking your soul, I want to be like, how can we get an hour or 2 hours put on your calendar this week to start looking for something else, or even letting yourself envision life looking different? If maybe you do want to focus your ambition on your career, not because you want to crush it in your current career, but you want to find something else. Or maybe the business that you have right now, you're like, I've been doing this for a really long time and I'm good at this, but I'm just not excited about it anymore. I'm underwhelmed. I want to do something new. I want to do something fresh, or I've always wanted to do XYZ. And then you just shut that idea down because you're like, oh, I don't have the capacity to do it, right? I'll just keep doing what I'm doing now. To that, I say, like, we have one shot here on this planet. Our days are numbered. We literally do not know the count. So I don't want you to be wishing away your current season, right? For a day, for a week, which turns into months, which turns into years. I want you to say, this is where I'm at now. This is how I'm honoring my ambition. This is where I want to be. And this is how I'm working to get myself there. Because there is nobody in the world that I would bet on more than a mom. Seriously. Moms get shit done. Period. Better than anybody else. I honestly will stand, I will die on that hill. Because you just know how to hold so much. So you're capable of doing whatever the hell you set your mind to, but I really do want you to be on your own team. So what does ambition look like for you right now? It's not about doing more. It doesn't have to be about chasing, hustling, scaling. It can be more intentional. It can say, like, what is alignment for me? And getting really honest with yourself about what matters most. Because I'll be really honest with you. I never, like when I was pregnant, even before we got pregnant, I never envisioned that I would want to have any chapters of when our kids were young with spending the majority of the time with our kids and not as much time on my business. Like, I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. Like, I've been an entrepreneur since 2014. So long before we had kids. I did not see this season for me. I'm grateful for a prior version of me and even my husband, a lot of the choices that we made to have the opportunity for me to choose what I wanted to do in this season as a new mom that's also, wanting to grow our family. But I didn't see this coming. So it's been a really interesting identity conversation for me where I'm like, I've always identified as ambitious. And again, our cultural narrative around ambition has been focused on career or business. And I've been an entrepreneur for 11 years now. So it's like, I always thought like scaling, growing, hustling, like kind of feeling like I'm running around like a little bit crazy and like childcare and this and blah. Like I kind of felt like that was going to be my life. And I wasn't upset about that. I just didn't envision that at any point in time, I would come to my husband and be like, you know what? I really don't want us to have a nanny right now. I really want to be with Brody, our son. And I really want to just focus on my health. And I really want to build something in his nap times. And I think it could be so massive. And I think that I can get a lot done in just 2 hours a day. And, sometimes I'll need your help with XYZ, or like maybe we'll hire babysitters if I need, when I come up with new ideas. But right now in this season, I just really want to do that, which sounds great. And it is great. And I'm so happy and fulfilled by it. But I'm still someone who's struggling with my identity being tied to how much time I spend working. And how I identify myself now. Because as someone who is a former hustler, and I owned that, I do think when you've had a hustle season, you just like have it in you. Like I've got this like hustler in me. Like right now I'm doing a lot of like, story times and like toddler things, but I've got this hustler in me that like, if I need to turn her on, buckle up. Like I can go, right? And I know I can go even harder now that I'm a mom because of the fact that I believe I'm just so capable. Because if I can grow a human and birth a human and I got a little hustler in me, like I can do anything. And I believe that's true for you too. But the point I'm trying to make is I'm still in this current moment having to remind myself on a daily basis, honestly, sometimes more than once a day, I'm still having to remind myself that I'm like, this is what I want right now. And I'm channeling my ambition into my son. And yes, I'm working on nap time and I'm so excited about this podcast and this brand that I'm building and the ideas that I have that are coming down the pipeline. But like, this is where I want to focus. So I didn't lose myself. It's not that I'm not ambitious. It's not that I'm not an entrepreneur. It's not that I don't care about the impact that I'm making in the world. It just looks different because my desire is different of how I want to show up for it. So what does ambition look like for you right now? What does that mean with your circumstances, with your desire? And how can you give yourself permission to drop the prior like layers of your identity that are holding you back? Because again, if I keep comparing myself to a prior version of myself, saying like, oh, like, why can't I hustle like she did? You know, why can't I make the type of money that she made? Why can't I do X, Y, Z? If I'm constantly comparing myself to her, I'm not even talking about anybody else. I'm talking about a prior version of me, right? If I'm comparing myself to a prior version of me and I'm like, she did this, so I should be able to do this. That's tricky. That's a slippery slope because I don't want to do it the way that she did it. I have so much respect and admiration for that prior version of me that got me here. Like, I'm so grateful, but I don't want to do that now. So I still get to identify as an entrepreneur and ambitious, and that I care about community and I care about making an impact. And I hope that this is helpful for you. And this is so fulfilling for me. I'm just so excited, but it does look so different, which means I'm saying no to so much now, right? Like when I have people that are like, hey, Kacia, can you come on my show? And XYZ, I'm like, I say yes to some if it fits into my schedule, but I'm saying no to a lot. I'm saying no to a lot of events that I would have said yes to because it just doesn't fit my season. And that can be uncomfortable because whether or not you struggle with people-pleasing tendencies, we were once little girls, which means I feel our culture was socializing us to be yes girls, to not want to like stir the pot or like step on anybody's toes. And we have these underlying people-pleasing tendencies that like, I think we all have, right? At different varying degrees. So right now it's me honoring my own season and saying like, this is what ambition looks like for me right now. So owning your season means letting it be what it is, not what it was, right? So what does that mean for you? It's up to your interpretation. But I think some of you, maybe you specifically, really need to just say like, where am I still comparing myself to a prior version of myself? Where am I still defining ambition based off of like an old season? Where am I like needing to revamp my definition of success? New season, new scoreboard, right? Which means your criteria has to look different right now. Otherwise, you're not even on your own team. And you're the only person that you're going to spend every single second with of every single day for the rest of your life. That's the only guarantee you have, truthfully. So you have to be pumping yourself up. You have to be owning your season. You have to be redefining what ambition looks like and pulling at the threads of these thoughts that are coming up around your identity, right? And I'm sharing with you some of the things that I've struggled with, comparing even this podcast to a prior podcast or comparing this version of me to a prior version of me and really having to identify where was I getting validation? Part of it was how much money I was making, just being truly honest, right? I've made a lot more money in previous years. And that doesn't mean that I can't make a ton of money working only part-time and doing I know that anything is possible. I don't have an abundance problem. Trust me. I don't have an abundance problem. I know anything is possible, but it's like, I have to check in on that. Right. And maybe you do too. Checking in on what does that look like for you right now? So if you're in a slower season or a rebuild or something that's maybe not as shiny from like an accolade perspective, I want you to understand like how much it matters. Because what I've really realized too is the growth that I'm having right now from being in what might look like a slower season in terms of where I'm showing up and how much I'm showing up and whatever. It has helped me so much as a human that I really feel like the value that I have to give when I do decide to show up and create spaces for women like us, I'm going to be so much better in terms of how much value I can add because I chose this rather than to keep going at the pace that I was going at, because you learn when the season changes. You have to recalibrate. Your identity shifts and like what you think about yourself and where you have to peel back on where you were getting your validation. That's so humbling and it's such important work. And I think in the speed up or the slow down, that matters, right? So like right now, maybe you're in the complete opposite season of me where like you've got this business idea and you're hustling, right? Or you have like one of my best friends has a brokerage, real estate brokerage here in Denver. She has a young child. She has an 8-month-old, literally one of my very best friends. And she's got like 25 plus agents working for her in this brokerage, and she's crushing it. Like, this is the time where like they're growing like crazy, and she's like off to the races, and it's her go mode. Like, they are exploding, and she's still a kick-ass mom to her son. She's doing both, right? We're in very different seasons of where we want to show up and how we want to show up. And when she honors it, she's not feeling the guilt, because she knows how much this is so fulfilling for her to build this big brokerage and to mentor these women and men that are on her team and to grow this. Like, what she's growing, it's so cool. And like, that's what she's lit up to do right now. And then when she shows up to her son, she shows up to her son. So I want to remind you that that might be your season too. I'm not encouraging you to slow down. I'm encouraging you to ask yourself, what is it that I really want right now? And then owning it. And if you happen to be in a season where the circumstances have changed, right? Like, even my friend that I'm using as an example, she's a new mom and she has a big business. So she's had to play with the identity of like, how do I show up as a good mom if I'm not spending the amount of hours with my kid that maybe even me, one of her very best friends, is spending? We're both kick-ass moms who are honoring our desire and doing what's aligned for us. And I think the reason why we're both so happy, using us both as examples, is because we know that this is what we want for this season right now. That doesn't mean that it's not hard sometimes. That doesn't mean that I don't still have the part of me that's like, wait, I want to go speak at that thing. I want to go do X, Y, Z. I want to be traveling all the time. I want to build this big thing. But then I ask myself, like, is that what I really want right now? And if I'm honest, I don't. I don't feel FOMO. I'm feeling a lot of JOMO, like joy of missing out, of things that a prior version of me wanted. But at any point in time, that could change. And I could be on this mic sharing with you, you know what? Season has changed. This is my new idea. This is what I want to do. I'm going to hustle. I'm bringing in full-time childcare. This is what it looks like. And I'm off to the races. Let's go. And then I'm going to have to own that. And I'm going to have to remind myself that I'm still a kick-ass mom if I'm spending less time with my child and pouring more into my ambition from a career or business perspective. We're going to have to be doing this juggle for forever. And I hope that through these conversations and normalizing some of this, you know, with you and I having these chats, or I guess I'm technically talking to you and I don't know where you are in the world, but I love getting to hear where you are in the world. So you keep me in the loop of your season. Having these chats, or when my husband's on, or when I'm bringing different women on this show, that you just nod your head and you're like, she gets it. She gets me. I'm figuring it out too. And I just want to normalize that ambition has to be redefined constantly, especially when a season changes, right? So own your season. Don't compare it to other people, especially strangers on the internet, when you have no idea what the F is going on behind closed doors for them. And don't compare yourself to a prior version of yourself when the circumstances are very different now, right? Because I really do believe that if you honor it and own it, a prior version of you that was in a different circumstance is completely irrelevant, because this version of you needs to learn what this version of you can. And then a future version of you is going to look back on this version of you now and be like, damn, I'm so happy that she owned that, because she learned something she couldn't have possibly learned had she not just owned it. But you owned it. And you're like, this is where I'm at right now. This is how I'm honoring my ambition. This is what my season is. And it will change in a week, a month, a year. I don't know when your season's going to change. I don't even know when my season's going to change. But we have to be on our own team. And in the meantime, honestly, not even in the meantime, forever, I'll be on your team too. Okay? I love you. I'm rooting for you. If this episode was helpful, I'm just going to unapologetically ask, if you love this podcast, can you do one of two things? Either, can you please leave a review on Apple, in particular Apple Podcasts, because this is a new show. Getting ratings and reviews on the show at this stage is really important. It helps like recommend the show to other people. So that would be amazing. Or if you're someone who likes to share things on social media, or you're in a mom group or something and you want to share this podcast with someone that you think needs to hear this conversation, that would mean the world to me, because it's not about growing it to like crazy. It will grow to crazy things, but it's about the right people that just like need to hear this in their soul. And I want to meet those people. So I love you. I'm rooting for you, and I'll talk to you soon. See you on the next episode.